And very pleased to have on the line with us Andrew Gillum. He is the mayor of Tallahassee, Florida. He's a Democrat, a Hillary supporter. Hillary's website, of course, is hillaryclinton.com. Talgov.com is the Tallahassee government site. And you can tweet him at Andrew Gillum, Gillum. Do I have all that right, Mayor?
You got it all, man. You did some Oppo research.
No, this is good guy research.
I like it. I'm messing with you.
So you live in a state where you've got a governor who says that it's against the law to talk about climate change, at least if you work for him. And you've got a Proposition 1 on the ballot, which will make solar power hard, if not impossible, for the average person. And yet they're pitching it as let's do solar energy. You've got I believe that Rick Scott is participating with Chris Kobach on the interstate cross-check thing, which is essentially the same thing that Jeb Bush did in 2000 when he threw 40, 50, 60,000 African Americans off the voting rolls 3 weeks before the 2000 election so his brother could get within stealing range of the presidency. I mean, it's got to be bizarre being a Democratic mayor in Florida.
Well, you forgot that this is also the governor that has failed to extend health care coverage to the neediest 1.5 million Floridians.
Yes.
The governor also said that Syrian refugees, however well vetted they may be through a 2-year process at the federal level, were not welcomed in the state of Florida. To put it mildly, it's a little bit tough. And to add insult to injury, I'm mayor of the capital city, which is the seat of government for the state of Florida. So we get more than our share of interactions with our governor. I think the upside is, however, regardless of those really, really poor and bad decisions and political positions by our governor, we're still a state that I believe tends to vote with the right party. We're a state that twice went for Bill Clinton, a state that arguably went for Al Gore, and certainly a state that delivered Florida's 29 electoral votes to Barack Obama now twice. Yeah. And I believe we're also going to deliver this state for Hillary Clinton if we keep doing what we've got to do to turn the vote out. The early signs are good, that's for sure.
The thing that blows my mind, Mayor Gillum, is that the Republican Party has fought Social Security literally since the year it was put into place, which I think was 1935, and calling it a socialist program or a communist program. I mean, they fought it every 16 ways to Sunday. And Paul Ryan, every single one of his budgets has started the process of let's try to privatize it. George W. Bush, after the 2004 election, came out and said, I got all this political capital from my war in Iraq, which he had predicted in '99 to his biographer if he was going to invade Iraq and get political capital so that he could privatize Social Security. In 2005, he comes out and he says, I want to privatize Social Security. Who's with me on this? And he couldn't even, he couldn't get it through, but he tried. He gave it a real try. And you're in a state, now I realize Tallahassee up in the north, probably not quite so much as maybe down in the south, down in the Miami area, but you've got a state that has a disproportionately large population of retired people or people near retirement age, and yet so many of them continue to vote Republican. Does the news media down there do as bad a job of reporting Republican positions on issues like Social Security and Medicare of interest to retired persons as they do on a national level?
Well, I'll tell you, I don't know if it was a joke, but I've heard it too many times now where we've had folks who are beneficiaries of Social Security say, just keep the government off my Social Security,
right.
Which I think a lot of times people don't even do that it's easy thinking to know that Social Security is absolutely a federal program. It is solvent today. That the borrowing that's been done under the Republican leadership has weakened the future trajectory and solvency here and not strengthened it. And so what we've obviously got to do is do a better job on the ground of communicating to folks exactly what's at stake in these elections. Where does the Republican Party stand? Yes, with Donald Trump as its flag bearer today, but also where has it stood on these issues? Not just this election cycle, but in previous cycles. And what are they promising to do if we continue to leave them in power and in leadership? And compare that to the very progressive agenda that's been offered by progressives and offered by Democrats. One, to create jobs. Two, to invest in education. Three, to make sure that we keep Social Security strong and around for generations and generations to come as part of our value system, that for those folks who have worked hard, have given, have sacrificed, have helped us to become the great nation that we are, that civilized societies do what it requires and does what it takes to make sure that those folks can live out the latter part of their years with some semblance of comfort and convenience and care. That's deeply embedded in our belief system as a party. And as you can imagine, on the other side, privatization, corporate welfare continue to line the pockets of the wealthiest few while sacrificing those who are in greatest need. And those are the issues that are on the ballot this election, not just Donald Trump, but the party that has enabled Donald Trump and the party that, for all intent and purpose, intend on confirming justices that are of that same belief system, and that's a problem.
Yeah, it is. I started out my program today talking about how in Georgia and a few other states, I mean, Wisconsin, some real serious efforts to suppress the vote, refusing to open early voting places on college campuses, for example, reducing the availability of places to get voter ID in those states that require it. In your state, a significant portion of the African-American population, I believe it's, correct me if I'm wrong, about 1 in 4 African-American men of voting age can't vote because of a police record, which is something that goes back to the Reconstruction. It was an effort to use the 13th Amendment to deny people the right to vote. Are there significant voter suppression efforts going on in Florida too?
Well, I tell you, most of what we see by way of suppression are suppression through what has frankly become structural. That is, you're not going to see people, you shouldn't see folks who are standing out in front of, polling precincts and sicking dogs on you or water hoses. Right. What you see now is a much more sophisticated form under which folks are kept from voting. It is, yes, this voter ID laws that exist not just here but across the country that makes it allowable for you to use your NRA registration or your gun license registration and not your student ID card. Well, who does that help and who does that hurt? Right. We know that particularly older, elderly, low-income folks have different levels of challenges getting access to some of the government documents that they need and that are required in some of these really high burdensome voter ID states that, again, keep them from having access to the ballot box. And, of course, you've hit on the one that's really close to me and close to our the advocate groups in our state, which is the disenfranchisement for former felons. It's funny that we have a practice in the law against charging someone for the same crime, yet you can punish people perpetually after they've done their service, after they've done their time and repaid society for how they have wronged it. Yet you have to go and stand before a four-member Republican cabinet at whatever time they're able to get you scheduled. By the way, we've got one of the worst backlogs in the entire country where you have to go and get your rights, beg for your rights to be restored. We had a governor under Charlie Crist who automatically restored rights to over 1 million former felons. And then this governor came in, Rick Scott, and took all of that back through executive power, rolled back all of that advancement. And so these issues are critical. But what you hear Donald Trump talking about, which is, the voter disenfranchisement and fraud and that kind of thing, it's a myth of his own making, but it's substantiated. What is the real harm is the harm that has been enshrined in our legal documents through executive order and through legislation around these voter ID laws that do serious harm to individuals, particularly those with lesser means and students with lesser power, theoretically, preventing them access to the ballot box, or certainly making it more difficult for them to have access to the ballot box, to the voting.
And it is so good to hear a Democrat just speak that truth to power, to speak that bluntly and honestly. Mayor Andrew Gillum, you're doing great work. Thanks so much for being with us today.
I appreciate that.
You're
Have a good one.
listening to Thom Hartmann.